Yes, time is money, we all know that. Thanks for coming. We have a male here crew. We had a women crew half an hour ago, which were the ladies from the charter and from Croatia. I would like to introduce a little team. Nives Vreto, the CEO of PBZ-Leasing, is here. Irena Gršković, who is the head of everything that has to do with sailing and sail yachts. And I have to say that this little crew had also the experience from the 90s, joining the sailing industry, joining the financing industry of sailing yachts from 96 onwards. So you will see the years that will appear here. My name is Vatroslav tefanec. As a joke, I always like to say my name is Vat, shortened. You can find my name on every invoice, which is VAT. But I'm working as a yacht broker. I was working before that with PBZ-Leasing for 13 years, covering also the financing of yachts and the financing of real estate and also all other assets that we did. Thanks for being here, and let's just drop into this team. What we'll say is about PBZ-Leasing, a few words. Finance lease in the Croatian way, I have to say, because if you say leasing, it can be operating leasing, financial leasing, whatever you say, but it's every country, even though we're called here in Europe, European Union, has its own definition of leasing. And this came really in a very bad sense into the leasing industry integration when we had to introduce the leasing law. Croatia is one of the rare countries in the world, I have to say, that has a leasing law. And this law is controlled by an authority which is called HANFA. And HANFA is like a little national bank, we would say, who's controlling the leasing industry. So this flexibility that, for example, we had in the 90s and until 2006, today we do not enjoy. So today we will talk about financial leasing, finance lease, not about operating lease, which is decreasing dramatically in Croatia. If anybody of you had operating leases contracts, in Croatia, operating leasing is on the downfall because of several reasons that we can explain later. The process and then the calculation of the lease payment, and at the end, where you will see that PBZ-Leasing is really connected to this business and to this industry, we will say a few words about Easter Regatta, which takes place for the 24th time next year. Yeah, 24 years of Easter Regatta multi-day event. So PBZ-Leasing is a small member of the PBZ Group. PBZ Group in Croatia has the status #1 in the banking industry. This PBZ Group again is owned by the Intesa Sanpaolo Bank from Milan. So if anybody has businesses in Italy, I'm sure you know this banking group, Intesa Sanpaolo. So financing all varieties of products ranging from passenger cars, commercial vehicles, machinery, equipment to vessels, meaning that PBZ-Leasing is a leasing company covering all assets. Of course, you have specialized leasing companies that would finance, for example, only cars, Porsche leasing, Mercedes-Benz leasing, and so on. And you have the other side of the leasing industry that are mostly connected to banking, which are then covering all the assets, starting from passenger cars, going down to, let's say, airplanes and big, huge yachts. PBZ-Leasing is cooperating with really all manufacturers in the boating industry and also in other industries and sales representatives for Croatia, because it's quite easier to handle yacht purchase through a sales representative if existing in Croatia than going the way from the manufacturer with all the import stuff that is combined with that. And also supporting the domestic industry in Croatia, which is growing, small motor yachts to the range of 12, 14 meters is also covered by that. 45 employees. And what is interesting are these branch offices, Rijeka, Zadar, Split and Pula, which are at the coast. So anything that is dealt can also be dealt through the these branch offices, but of course the decision process is made in Zagreb about each and single financing that is offered. Now, from 1999 until 2006, and this is unique on the Croatian market, PBZ Leasing had an own charter fleet, 25 yachts situated in Split. And our CEO, Nives Vreto, was one of the main actors in that part. So if anybody knows anything about charter, then that would be Nives, who handled in that period all these yachts upheld in Split. But what happened in 2006? In 2006, the leasing law came, and the leasing law said, no, leasing industry is only allowed to do leasing. No other activities are allowed except leasing. So PBZ Leasing had to sell the business and concentrate the activities fully on leasing. But in the period 1996-7 was the first yacht financing until today. So you see 700 yachts, vessels, ranging from, let's say, 8-9 meter sailing boats up to motor yachts of the range 30 meters, 35 meters that came from Turkey, I remember, at that time. In your countries, operating lease versus finance lease, is that a big thing? Or how do you finance your yachts? Oh, that's the best way. So if you have enough money, of course.
We don't have any money.
How do you do that? Give me your formula. No, because there's always a big discussion about whether to finance a yacht through finance lease or through operating lease. Operating lease would be the, let's say, classical leasing, meaning you never own the asset in the end. So you don't buy the thing in the end. You don't want to know about it in the end. Financial lease is like close to the banking loan. But if you want to avoid the bank, who is very strict in their viewing of how to finance anything, then you would choose a leasing company. Because what is the difference between banking and leasing in the end? In the end, the bank, when financing, they look into the money, the amount. You know, they don't look what you're using this money for, whether it's a yacht, whether it's okay, indirectly they ask you, of course, whether you use it for a yacht, whether you use it for a car, for whatever. But the leasing industry, who is very well connected to the asset as itself, because the leasing is the owner in the end. The leasing owner, as an owner, has to keep track of any asset financed and the so-called depreciation rate, how fast is the value going down, and so on and so on. So the leasing industry knows what they're financing. So if you have PBZ Leasing with 700 yachts financed, you must know that you're speaking to a partner that knows what he's financing. And out of that, of course, then the question comes whether to finance motor yachts, whether in millions of amounts, or whether to finance sailing yachts or catamarans. We will come to that later. To say about financial leasing, the biggest advantage of financial leasing is that the value-added tax is reclaimed, that you get the value-added tax back after 2 or 3 months. If it's a new established company, you can take the value-added tax completely out. The second thing why to finance through a Croatian company would be that when we in Croatia say down payment is the amount, 30%, that you will have to pay for upfront to diminish in the end the risk of a leasing company. We're calculating it from the brut amount, meaning from the amount with or including value-added tax. We will show you that in some examples. Very interesting. Nauta Finance module. Nauta would mean, you know, that throughout the year you have peaks and you have downwards with your income in a charter fleet. Or if you cover 2 seasons, you don't have this effect. But the Nauta model of PBZ leasing offers you smaller installments in the wintertime, bigger, huger amounts in the summertime when you have bigger income. So the adapting of your repayment can be followed through the seasons. So if you would be interested in something like that, Irena, Nives, can make your calculations through this Nauta finance module, which is directly targeted to you as people who are financing yachts. Okay, this liquidity ratio is very important for the internal thing of cash flow. Ownership, for somebody, this is very important, that the ownership is transferred to the lessee at the end of the leasing contract, which is not the case in operating leasing. In operating leases, you have to give the asset back to the leasing company. It mustn't be physical, but through papers, it has to be in the ownership, and it is in the ownership of a leasing company, and then the leasing company decides where to sell, to whom to sell. So there is a kind of risk, because according to the Croatian leasing law, you're not allowed to make any statements of, I'm going to sell you the yacht, I don't know, at that time in the future. It is forbidden, absolutely, strictly forbidden in operating lease contract to make any allusions or any signs that you will sell the yacht to the lessee to the moment. And this is a very huge restriction. And this is why the numbers of yachts financed through operating lease are falling rapidly down. And also the second component is that the residual value, I don't know if the residual value of a yacht, sailing yacht, can be 50%, let's say after 5 years, is very adaptable. How to exactly know whether it's going to be 50%, 40% in the end, 60%? Who is saying what is the real market price for that yacht after 5 years? So these are all the questions that you have with operating lease that you don't have in financial lease, because the ownership is transferred after you make your last payment, which is in the calculation 50 euro. You can take the yacht and sell it, resell it, and do whatever you like. What a question would always be, well, do you finance abroad? I can tell you the European Union exists, but let me make another example. Would I be able, as a Croat, to finance a yacht through a German leasing company? And a yacht that would be in Croatia? I would say that I would get really, really difficulties, even in this mature financial markets like UK, like Germany, like anywhere, to get a yacht financed that wouldn't be in a charter fleet in Germany, that would be in a charter fleet in Croatia. So this is the reason that lessees can be, of course, legal person, natural person. Craft enterprises, this we can forget, because you wouldn't make a craft enterprise here in Croatia. You would create a DOO, limited liability company, and registered in Croatia under Croatian flag. So if anybody expected that PBZ Leasing could finance abroad, this we cannot offer. This is very, very, very difficult to organize, and it is also linked to risks combined with an asset that is abroad. So what is financed? Of course, sailing yachts, catamarans, and motor yachts. Modifiers, I call them, of leasing installments is a down payment. The down payment, the bigger it is, of course, the installment is smaller. And if talking about interest rates, then, of course, the down payment in the efficient way of reducing interest would be something that is interesting. For example, we had a question, well, is it possible when I get the VAT back from the state to put it afterwards into the leasing arrangement? That would mean after 3 months, 4 months, when you get the value-added tax back from the Croatian government, from the Croatian ministry, can I put it into the down payment, additional down payment of a yacht? Of course. Of course you can. Because you're reducing your installment, you're reducing your absolute interest rate, and you're reducing, of course, the risk of the leasing company to have a lower amount financed if you put the VAT into the second round of down payment. The residual value. So what we tried when we saw that operating leasing gets really complicated on the Croatian market, we put a residual value which is possible for a typical sailing yacht. For a typical sailing yacht, it is possible to say, no, it can be 10% as a last payment. It can be 15% as a last payment at the end. It can be 20% as a last payment, which of course has a positive effect of smaller installments throughout the payment. So we combined, so to say, the positive aspects of operating lease into financial leasing, offering you, for typical yachts, residual values that are higher percentages that can be applied for sailing yachts and catamarans, and which of course diminishes the monthly installment. Question from sir.
What is a higher percentage?
Sorry?
What is your definition of higher percentage that can be applied?
Yes. Since leasing is working object by object, so you are not entering a bank, you're entering a leasing company that knows the asset finance, that knows the sailing yacht. We have to see what is the sailing yacht, what is the amount, what is the creditworthiness of the client. Do we talk about realistic things? So all these elements have to be put together to say that, I would say, a typical sailing yacht that we know that is worth after 5 years of charter, 55% easily can be upgraded to, let's say, 20% of residual value. Yeah? If you come with an atypical story of a catamaran of 2 million euro, then this should be analyzed separately. So, the repayment scheme, semi-annual installments as well. Semi-annual when we say, after a season, you have enough money on your account, you would like to get rid of the leasing installments throughout the winter, it is possible to say, 1st of November, 1st of December, I will pay upfront 6 installments, getting the money out of my account, and this is then the half-year installments. Then before the season again, 1st of April, 1st of May, 1st of June, I would like to cover all the leasing installments for the 6 months upfront. So you see, this is any kind of repayment, since we are dealing with individuals as you are, as businessmen, and we are dealing with individual objects like sailing yachts, can be adapted to your needs. So it doesn't have to be the 1st of November, it can be the 1st of, I don't know, 1st of October. We have a system, software system, that can follow any kind of contract in any kind of model. Through this balloon model, for example, this balloon means, yes, I want this big, huge amount of yacht having transferred to the end. Let's say it was 20%. And it's obviously, the supplier has to get an offer, financial statements, analysis of financial statement, creditworthiness check. We're doing the creditworthiness check because, you know, in the car industry, car manufacturers have their own leasing companies and banks, and you would say, no, they know their cars, they know everything what they finance, there is no credit. Even though if you're buying a BMW through their bank, or Porsche, or VW, or whatever, through their own bank, of course you have to present your financial statements, they have to get you known, and then after 1 or 2 or 5 leasings, you can then say, well, we know the client and we don't need any additional financial information from the client. But the first contact with a leasing company or a bank is really to present himself in a real objective way, so that also the leasing company and the bank can say, well, we have a partner with whom we can do business for the next 5, 10, 20 years. And something what I always like to say, if you can get anything for free in the financial industry, it's a creditworthiness check. And I would recommend to you, why don't you copy your financial statements? Because it's the cost of copying and sending it to the leasing company. For example, in November and December, which is this time of the year, and the leasing company, with their experts, will give you feedback saying, 500,000 euro. You have excellent financial statements. Please, pick these are these yachts, 500,000, 1 million euro. We will do that for you as soon as you need the money. So this is something that PBZ Leasing is offering you in November, December, giving us the possibility to look into your financials, that we don't get into the situation in February, March, April, and then having to walk around and see where can I get the financing for a yacht charter fleet that is already booked for the whole summer. Yes, please.
Just a simple question. You used to have a limit of 1 million euro financing for the yacht.
No. I know in what direction. 1 million euro is in the decision process of a leasing company, but it can be 10 million euro. It can be 30 million euro. Of course, it depends on your creditworthiness. I think you're talking about the limit of a leasing company to make a decision, but there is a limit above that, which is the under bank limit. Yeah, the bank limit in Croatia is much higher than that. So within Croatia, we can talk about financing that are really, really far above 1 million euro.
It was just a question because 2 years ago I was actually the client to talk even about financing of the yacht that was 2.2 million euro by the PBZ leasing because it was said to me that you have a limit of 1 million, anything above we cannot even talk about. So I said okay.
You mean the limit of a yacht?
Yeah.
The yacht amount, was the motor yacht or a sailing yacht?
Catamaran.
Now your situation is changing. You know, before when you were more in the catamarans were 500,000, 600,000. Now there are new models, what you said, which are much above 1 million euros. So it always depends on the analysis of the client and on using objects. So we cannot say right now, okay, 3 million, that's okay, you will have it.
No, of course there is a process of approval, but just at least to know if there is any point of applying for the client check or bonity check if the value
You can
is above.
apply, and of course we will check all elements which will make sense to
Now, if I may answer indirectly to your question, this is a slide that was given to us by the real experts who are doing this checking of a client. So in these sentences, which are very, very complicated somehow to look into, is what a future system will look like when all this checking will be done probably in a few years by artificial intelligence. All these parameters will be put in. So to do this creditworthiness check, your business operations have to show an operating and net income. So that would mean losses are a huge problem. You can say these losses were generated in this, that way, but still it remains a problem because these losses were created probably because of financing of a yacht or a fleet 2 years ago. So still you have these generated losses, which can cause, of course, a problem to have a positive then impact on your creditworthiness check. This famous word in banking industry that you will find is nothing else than EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization. So all these elements are taken out and we're checking whether you have sufficient possibilities to meet your financial obligations. We don't want any client to get into trouble with repayment. So this is why this creditworthiness, and the creditworthiness check is not something that you can create in a few months. This is something that is created in the whole history of your company. Meaning from day one of dealing of any business up to 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you always have to keep an eye with tax experts, with a good financial support that will give you all these signals and then present these financial statements to the bank or to the leasing industry, which comply with all these requirements. Capital requirement. You can found a Croatian company with, what, 20 kuna? JDOO, a small Croatian company, can be founded with €2 of capital. You can present this company to the leasing company saying, I want €200,000 from you. How does that look? Founded with 20 kuna of capital and wanting a financing of €200,000. Because it was easier to establish a small limited company rather than a, let's say, a limited company that is having a capital that is around, let's say, 100,000 kuna, 15,000, 20,000 euro, and so on. Liquidity is always checked. Indebtedness. So, what does that mean? 40% of operating income. Banking loans, existing leasings, everything else. We're summing this up, looking at in the range of what is your income, what is your earning, what is your all parameters, and this shouldn't be about 40%. 40% of all your obligations compared to the earnings in that year. Yeah? So, if you have financial experts, this slide is good for them. They should look into it. This is also, in banking industry, the same kind of looking into a creditworthiness check of a client. Cash flow, of course. Realistic repayment is, of course, also very important. What I said before, this is exclusively in Croatian financing industry, in leasing industry. You wouldn't find that anywhere. You must give me a signal if that is true. That Croatia and PBZ leasing, when saying 30% of down payment, is calculated from the amount including VAT, which gives you an opportunity to take out of 37,500 euro, 25,000 back. So the real down payment is actually 12,500 euro. You wouldn't find that kind of calculation, I think, anywhere in Europe, because all banks and leasings in Europe, they don't want to mess around with your VAT. They're not interested in your VAT. When they say 30% down payment, that would mean 100 minus 30, they would finance 70. Here we finance 87.5. Positive thing in Croatia. Talking about interest, fixed. I think this is also quite a good thing that you have realistic projections. What is it going to cost me in the next 5 years? So the fixed standard offered interest rate here for a motor yacht up to 150,000 euro. And this is also where PBZ leasing is more oriented into the sailing yacht and catamaran business than in motor yacht business. But still, offers are made also for motor yachts up to 150,000 euro with a fixed interest rate of 3.6 as a standard offer. Of course, if we are talking about 10 motor yachts, 10 sailing yachts, amount 1,500,000 and more, this has to be negotiated in the end. One-time fee, and here, again, this residual, which is symbolic 50 euro at the end. This is what I said can also be adapted to your needs, meaning that it can jump up to 10%, meaning 10,000 euro. You would immediately see in the calculation that the monthly installment is not 1,594, but 10% less. So in cash flow, this would mean a good thing. For sailing yacht, which we have here, for sailing yachts, 125,000, no, we can go above that. So, no, just see it as a standard calculation for you to see an amount of 100,000. If you multiply this by 5, yeah, 500,000, you can multiply also this amount by 5, getting the exact installment that you would pay for a 500,000 sailing yacht or catamaran in that area. Yeah? So also then, again, this story about this value-added tax, again, this relatively small down payment that you have in the end of around 8%, which is, I think, a unique offer in Europe for financing. And to also give you the link between PBZ leasing and the sailing industry for the 24th time, from the 1st to 4th of April, on the island of Hvar, we will have the Easter Regatta, most famous regatta, organized from the year 99 until today. A few words from Nives, who is in the organization committee from day 1, but day 2, day 3.
Okay, so there are many bullets and many reasons why to join us on Easter Regatta. I would say the most interesting for us and for charter industry in Croatia is the one because it opens nautic season in Croatia. And this regatta was actually the biggest one, especially at the beginning of, when it was second, third regatta, we had over 100 sailing yachts. And meanwhile, it became more professional regatta. It was in ORC Cup also. Even though once when people come from charter industry and nautic world, they join us in all following years. So I believe if you have your own clients or if you want to join us, you can contact us and get more information about the program. The reason why people want to join this, it's not just sport and nautic segment, but also business, because we as a bank invite all our VIP clients, and that's also what our sponsors do, like Visa and Generali. So this is also opportunity to be in multinational, also in business segment, to find new partners in this area. We have a program, we have events every evening, so if you decide, you can send requests and we will give you more information about this event. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We are 5 minutes late. I'm sorry about that. Thanks for your interest. So the stand of PBZ Leasing is just in the big hall. You can join us and get any additional information that you like. Thanks a lot.